This took place 17 years ago, during the winter of my junior year in high school. I have lost many memories over these years, so I'm recording this with the help of notes I've written down. Some smaller details and conversations have been expanded or adjusted by me, but I will strive to tell the truth without exaggeration. My hometown is in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by rice fields and mountains. The nearest place to hang out was a karaoke joint, about an hour away by bike. In 1991, a new religious establishment suddenly sprang up in this remote area. The locals were vehemently opposed, and my parents participated in meetings to stop its construction. They submitted petitions to the mayor and prefectural government and complained to the local media, but the religious group was able to proceed, citing certain conditions. Rumors circulated about these conditions, with many believing they had made large donations to the city, and the government ignored the locals' outcry amid the area's depopulation. The establishment was built near where we lived, with grounds 2 or 3 times the size of Tokyo Dome. Given the depopulation, land must have been very cheap. Construction wrapped up in the autumn of my sophomore year, and both my parents and teachers warned me to stay away and not associate with the people there. By the time I reached my junior year, the buzz around the place had faded. One day, a classmate named A said to me, "Want to sneak in and check it out?" My parents said a cute girl comes and goes from that place. Apparently, she shops daily. A's family owned the only large supermarket in town, and they were reportedly grateful to the devil worshippers for spending 20,000 to 30,000 yen every day. My parents say they're all kind and good. They are not scary at all, so let's go, A insisted. Bored and looking for something to do, a few of us agreed to investigate. 5 of us from class, myself, A, B, C, and D, along with 2 younger students, E and F, decided to go. With 7 of us, it could not possibly be scary. We were excited and in high spirits. We agreed to meet at an abandoned post office near the establishment. When I arrived, A, B, C, and E were already there, but we waited 30 minutes for D and F. They never showed, so the 5 of us ventured in without them. We parked our bikes and walked to the gate. "It's creepy at night though," someone said. "We should have brought another flashlight." A single light illuminated the building from a distance. "Shit, they're still awake," someone joked. "You think there's summoning demons?" We all started muttering and laughing. "We can't get in this way." "I know how to get in. There is a small gate around the corner." "You should have mentioned that earlier." He walked along the wall and found a small door built into the fence. A pushed it and it opened inward. The 5 of us slipped in, flicking our flashlights on and off as we wandered the grounds. "There's nothing here. We shouldn't get too close to the building." We debated what to do, but boredom set in, so we decided to explore closer. The main premises were about 100 meters from the gate, where 3 oddly designed buildings stood. As we sneaked closer, we spotted a public restroom between 2 of the buildings, clean and well lit, with white concrete paving and a bench outside. "Let's take a break," A suggested. "What? We'll be in deep trouble if they catch us. Let's just do a quick lap and leave." "If they catch us, they'll call the cops," I agreed. "We are graduating soon. We shouldn't do anything stupid now. Let's head home." But A sat on the bench, pulled out a cigarette and said, "Alright, let's leave after I finish this." So we all sat down to smoke. A said he needed to use the restroom and headed inside. B was like, "What the fuck? Is he really going to sneak into their building to use their toilet?" "Well, if he does, their demon might curse him." Then A called from inside, "Hey, get in here. You gotta see this." We filed in, one after another. "What do you think this is?" A pointed up one of the stalls. "It's a toilet," B replied. "Open the door." "What?" B muttered as he opened the door to reveal stairs leading underground. Strange, right? All the other stalls are toilets, but this one has stairs. It was then that I realized how odd this all was. A's words and actions had seemed off from the start. He was the one who suggested we break in, led us to the entrance, and now to the toilet. Did you come here to use their toilet? I asked him. No, yeah, that's right, he replied vaguely. You want to go down? Of course, I refused. Stop saying weird things. Let's get out of here. If we linger, they will find us. Huh, you scared? Too scared to go down a little? He taunted. He was clearly trying to provoke me. I felt he wanted us to go down there. I'm not going, B declared. I'm going home. But the other two disagreed. Looks fun. Let's check it out. See? You guys aren't chicken. I'm not going, B reiterated. Do what you want. Fine. The three of us will go down, he said. You guys wait here. So they descended the stairs, leaving B and I waiting inside. The restrooms were surrounded by buildings with numerous windows, so we did not know where we might be seen from. Waiting seemed our best option. Hey, don't you think A is acting strange? B suddenly asked. Yeah, he is. It feels like he's been trying to lead us here all along, I admitted. Exactly. We talked about the night's events and what we would do if we were discovered. After 5 minutes, we grew annoyed that the others had not returned. Let's just go home, B suggested. But A and the others had taken our flashlights, making it too risky to find the small door in the dark. We reluctantly decided to keep waiting. Then we heard footsteps nearby, several pairs shuffling their feet. B and I exchanged nervous glances. Shit, people are coming. This isn't good, we whispered. The tension was mounting. The footsteps drew closer, and we could not tell which direction they were heading. If we went outside, they would probably spot us, since we didn't know the layout yet. Shit, if they come this way, what do we do? B asked. There was panic in his voice. My heart raced as well. They might not be coming this way, I said, though I knew we needed to hide if they did. But soon enough, the footsteps grew louder. B grabbed a toilet stall door and pulled, but it would not budge. He tried the next one, with the same result. They were all locked. The footsteps were now only about 15 meters away and drawing closer. I instinctively felt they were coming for us. I think B sensed it too. We stood frozen in place. Screw it. Let's go down the stairs, B suddenly suggested. What, seriously? I was reluctant to descend those suspicious stairs, but there was nowhere else to hide, and if we bolted into the darkness outside, we would likely get caught. It was the middle of the night in a religious establishment, and our judgment was clouded by fear. We opened the door and crept down the stairs as the footsteps approached. The concrete steps seemed to go down forever, but we reached the bottom after just 10 steps. We couldn't see anything in the dark, but as we moved forward, we found an open door. Inside was a room lit by several orange bulbs hanging from the ceiling, casting an eerie glow. We stepped inside and quietly closed the door behind us. The room was about the size of 15 tatami mats, completely empty except for a large, round shape hanging from the ceiling. It resembled a giant iron hula hoop, stretching nearly to the walls. But we did not pay it much mind. I turned to B. Where are A and the others? They're not here. I don't know, he replied. As we suspected, the footsteps entered the toilets above us, echoing ominously. There were at least 3 or 4 people. We stood utterly still, frozen by fear. Voices murmured above, but we could not catch what they were saying. They seemed to be discussing something important. B hung his head, eyes closed. Time felt distorted, and I tried to recall something comforting to break the tension. The voices multiplied, and I realized there were likely 10 or more people up there. They must know we're hiding down here. I trembled at the sound of their creepy voices. Suddenly, the murmur ceased, followed by the sound of 2 doors swinging open, then a loud bang. They were opening the toilet doors, and I felt goosebumps creep over me. Wait, were those people in the stalls the whole time? B asked, and I realized he might be right. The doors were locked. They could only have been opened from inside. Then footsteps began descending the stairs. This was it. It only took about 15 seconds for them to reach the bottom. I squeezed B's arm. The footsteps were nearing. B let out a panicked scream, shaking off my grip. He dashed into the middle of the room and leaped through the giant ring. He vanished. I stared in disbelief. He should have jumped through the hula hoop, but he just disappeared. My fear morphed into confusion. I stepped away from the door and toward the hoop. I should apologize, I thought to myself. Tell them I'm sorry, we came in without permission, that I'm sorry, I wouldn't do it again. The door slowly creaked open. A face peered through the gap. An old person wearing a crown. A chilling smile illuminated their face. I couldn't tell if they were a man or a woman. They had long white hair beneath the crown, and their smile was unsettlingly wide. That was the first time I'd seen such an evil grin. This person did not look right in the head. I doubted they would listen to my apology. I couldn't bear to look at that cold, robotic smile for another second, so a terrified scream escaped me, and I followed B through the ring. When I opened my eyes, I found myself in a hospital bed. Everything was hazy, and I stared up at the ceiling, a needle sticking out of my arm. It took me 3 minutes to sit up. Outside the window, a beautiful sunset painted the sky. I was alone in a private room, feeling disoriented. I had no thoughts, just sat there, dazed. Eventually, there was a knock at the door, and a nurse entered. She looked surprised to see me and hurried off somewhere. The haze in my mind persisted. Soon, the head doctor entered, accompanied by several others, but I could not grasp what they were saying. My thoughts were a blur. As time passed, my consciousness gradually cleared. "We called your family," the doctor said. "You've been asleep for a long time, but don't worry. Everything is okay now." I had no idea how long I'd been out, but soon, a woman who looked like my mother and a young girl entered, both in tears. But that wasn't my mother. The name the doctor had mentioned earlier was not mine either. The woman, claiming to be my mother, cried with relief. "Oh, thank God, thank God." "Hey, big brother, welcome back," the younger girl said, bursting into more tears. I had an older brother in university, but I did not have a younger sister. "Who are you? Who the hell are you?" I repeated. "It's just the after effects. You will be okay soon," the doctor assured the woman and the girl. "We'll stay by your side all night," the woman promised. They conducted various tests while I lay there, and I told the doctor, "That's not my name. That's not my mother, and I don't have a sister." But the doctor merely tilted his head. Your memories are a little... Listen, you've been asleep for almost 2 years, so your memories might be fuzzy," he said. I was shocked. I could not comprehend the reality of the situation. The doctor chose his words carefully, trying to reassure me. The woman cried at the shock of my lost memories. "I need to go to the bathroom," I said, struggling to stand. My legs felt heavy, and I could barely support myself. The doctor, nurse, and young girl helped me along. It was then that I recalled the events of that night for the first time. Strangely, several hours had passed since I woke up, and I had not thought about it once. Everyone waited outside while I went in. When I finished and looked in the mirror, I screamed. The face looking back at me was a complete stranger. I don't remember much after that, but I think I panicked, and everything spiraled out of control. A month later, I was admitted to a general hospital. The people claiming to be my parents and the girl who said she was my sister visited, along with my so-called friends and teachers from school. I insisted I was not who they thought I was, and had no idea who they were. I recounted everything about A and B in my past memories, but they dismissed it as faulty memory. A did not exist, neither did B. They weren't real, yet everyone continued to treat me kindly. According to the doctors, I had been riding my bike home from school when a passerby found me unconscious. I was taken straight to the hospital. I had never heard of anything they were telling me. I explained to the doctor numerous times about the religious establishment and the hula hoop, but he told me it was just a dream that I had while I was in my coma. Even worse, I seriously started to believe that it was true, and that it was all a dream I had while asleep. I began to believe that not only had I lost my memories, but that I had written over them with a fake life and a fake world. Either way, I had no choice but to go forward living with this entirely different person. After I got out of the hospital, my parents took me back home. They asked me if I remembered it, but this was the first time I'd ever seen it. I went to counseling and did my best to adapt to this new life given to me. Everything was split into things I knew and things I'd never heard of before. I'd never heard of any place's names, nor the history of this place and the people from it, but the language was mostly the same. At first, I was unable to adapt to my new family and spoke to them formally. I insisted on doing my own washing and such, but strangely, I came to think of them as my real family in time, and that other life seemed like a dream. As this happened, memories of that over time slowly faded away. The only thing that clearly remained was the faces of my family and friends in the countryside town I lived in, but it still took time to remember even that. However, that last night remained vivid in my mind, especially the face of that old person smiling at me from the doorway. I adjusted to my new life and counseling visits became less frequent. I returned to school 6 months later. At 20, it felt strange, but I made friends and started enjoying myself. All the TV shows were new to me, allowing me to experience everything for the first time. We lived in a large city in Kanagawa, and I embraced the excitement of city life. Yet, about 4 months after returning to high school, something connected my past to my present. It was summer vacation, and I went to the bookstore to gather books for my summer homework. As I browsed, a title caught my eye, a book about that religion. There was no doubt. It had the same name as the establishment we had infiltrated that night. I was shocked. I grabbed the book and began reading. I devoured every book I could find, but none of it changed anything. I could not return to my old life. There was no way to prove my past was real to anyone. Those around me suggested that it was all just a dream, unconscious thoughts manifesting. Not wanting to burden my new family and friends, especially since I had just resumed school, I stopped discussing it. I lived as if everything was normal. 17 years passed, and now I work as a regular businessman in the city. I've been working the graveyard shift, 10:30 to 8 o'clock, for a while now, and haven't seen anything too strange, other than a creepy kind of vibe around that time. However, I think that mostly comes from how empty and quiet an area it is during that time, in contrast to the business of the day. I do have one story though, which I will share. Be me in the Navy. Get stationed at a shitty ancient jet base in the crumbling arid wastes of the Central Valley of California. Would have been creepy enough without the occurrences that followed. Get pulled to stand watch in a dirty old hangar filled with broken jets. Basically, play security guard for 4 hours. Just me there in the hangar, so I pull out my phone, take a seat in the corner, and read books on my phone. Should be chill, I thought. At this point, it is 2 a.m. About an hour more into the watch, and it is around 3 a.m. My thoughts of calm relaxation sink into a strong sense of dread. I try to play it off, skeptic style. Note that at this point, the hangar was still well lit by overhead floodlights. Around 15 minutes after this feeling of fear and utter dread, all the lights in the hangar go out one by one, leaving me in semi-darkness. The only light now comes from the streetlights outside, filtering through the hangar bay doors. Fuck it. Keep reading my book. The lights probably always go out around this time, and anyone will be creeped out in this weird hangar. I stop reading my book and go patrol around. It's cold. Strange for the hangar to be this cold. Suddenly hear a loud crash from one of the jets. Almost shit myself. Run over to investigate. Nothing there. Everything in the exact same spot. Freaking out at this point. Sit down and try to clear my head and talk myself out of how freaked I am. Notice that a long metal cable above my head tying down one of the jets begins to shake and wobble. Suddenly stops. I slowly, deliberately, reach out to touch it. I reach out to touch this metal wound cable rod. It is so strong and the tension on it so tight that even with all of my force, I can't get it to move so much as a centimeter. At this point, I'm sure I let out an audible whimper. I sit down and close my eyes for a second. Can this really be happening type shit. I start to hear music, faint chimes, but music off in the distance, behind the hangar bay doors. No one there, and more so, I can't even pinpoint where it is coming from. It was about 15 minutes later, and I am almost having a panic attack from fear and dread, shaking in my chair. have what I can only describe as a vision. I almost considered omitting this part because it sounds ridiculous and is hard to explain. I saw this, but I did not see it. It's more like I was forced to imagine it, I guess. I would just call it a vision. See in the vision a horrible, ghastly, burn-looking face appear out of the exhaust port of one of the old jets. Leers at me for peeling and burned flesh with a horrible, pleading look on its face. At this point, I positively forced myself to not look up for the rest of the night and read my book relentlessly. Hear multiple crashes, but don't look up for anything. In the morning, sun comes up and I feel better. Take a look around. Not a single item out of place. Watch relief shows up. Next shift, basically. He asked me with a shocked look, "You were in here all night?" I say, "Yeah," with a look like, "Shouldn't I have been?" He says he does not know anyone who would dare stay in this hangar of a night for this watch, and everyone just usually sits in the smoking area outside till the end of the watch. Says hangar is known to be haunted by everyone on base. I mentally shipwrecks. Tells me a story about how someone on watch here saw an old woman in the hangar. When they went to investigate, she dissipated into shadow. Multiple other stories as well. Owls are drawn to roost in this hangar. Finally, he tells me a lieutenant died in this hangar years ago. I don't ask, but I think I know how. I walk away and drive home shaking. Feel partly relieved that I am not insane. On the other hand, think I may have had a genuine paranormal experience. I have never posted this story before, but this thread got me in the mood. My family has owned this vacation house on the Oregon coast since the 1960s. Naturally, a dreary place. The neighborhood was heavily wooded and only about a half-mile inland from the water. There are a few houses dotted around the woods. One has always stuck out. It has been abandoned and boarded up my entire life. It always had an ominous vibe. Even the adults didn't like hanging out near the place. There were even a couple weather-worn wooden headstones on the property, which I always thought was odd. My friends and I used to like to try and freak each other out by making dares on who would get closest to the house. I even remember seeing figures in the second store windows at some points in my life. Always an unsettling place. One day, my friend John and I are bored at the coast. We are probably about 8 years old, and we decide to go spook ourselves at the house. We walk down the gravel road to the house, but something is different this time. The unsettling aura is completely gone. I even remember the weather clearing up and the area being covered in a warm, misty moss. Shortly after we arrive, a girl wearing a blue dress walks out from behind the house. She was our age, and she claimed that she and her family lived in the house. My friends and I were confused because this place had been boarded up for as long as we could remember, but she seemed not to hear us. She asked us if we would join her for a tea party in her treehouse. We were surprised, as we had never noticed a treehouse on the property before, but we joined her and hung out for what seemed like a few hours. It was getting late, and we needed to eat. We invited her to join us for food, but she said her parents did not want her to leave the property. We asked her if she could ask her parents about it, but she dismissed the idea. We left, had dinner, and told our parents about what happened. I remember my mom was disturbed about the story. Sure enough, the next day we returned to the house, and it had returned to its ominous state. We looked for evidence of our new friend, but there was no trace. The only clue that was left to us was the tree house she had taken us to in the backyard. It was still there, but it was completely overgrown with lichen, entirely dilapidated and falling apart from years of near constant rainfall and salt air. We tried to climb up to the treehouse, but it was too far gone and unsafe. My friend and I both remembered the story vividly, but we had a big falling out in middle school, and we have not spoken since then, so I have no idea what he thinks about it. Looking back, it feels like a totally benign experience. I'm not sure if it was a ghost or an incident of isolated time travel. It always felt like one of the most true paranormal events of my life. The desert in general is a weird-ass place, especially at night. Got a story from when I worked at a shitty discount retail store. Be me, 19. Work nights, straightening shelves, and helping out with furniture orders during the last few hours the store is open. It was a pretty busy night, but things slowed down. Just putting back stuff that was left at registers. Finish up a cart full of stuff, go for another one. Decide to talk to cashier for a bit to kill a few minutes. As we are talking, the automatic door opens. Don't see anyone going through it. Huh. Assume a stray cat walked by and triggered the sensor. Go back to talking. 5 or 10 minutes pass, and it happens again. What? Radio manager. Let her know the door is acting up. Alright. We'll get someone out to look at it soon. Grab another cart. Start putting stuff back and straightening up shelves. 9 p.m. rolls around. Closing time. Go up to front to lock door after having the cashier make an announcement to pull any customers to leave. Do a quick patrol of the store. Don't see anyone. As I'm walking past toys, I hear something hit the floor, loud as hell. Peek head into aisle to see a large and terribly cheap toy robot thing fell over and is on the floor in pieces. Pick everything up and go to take it to the front to be logged as damaged. As I start walking, I hear something else in another aisle fall. What in the fuck? Loop back to where I heard the noise. Find a large can of hominy has fallen and is leaking. Pick it up and make a note to start here when I go to get the mop. Go up to front with damaged goods. Cashier takes care of these for me. Hear the automatic door motor try to operate, even though it's locked. We both look at it, hear it start to groan. Look at each other, very confused. Go for rest of closing duties, occasionally hearing small sounds like stuff moving or extra footsteps while I'm walking. Feel very uncomfortable for the remainder of the shift. All the remaining crew, myself, one other employee, and the closing manager meet at the front to make sure we clock out and leave together. About fucking time. As we are clocking out and taking care of small things, we talk about weird stuff tonight. The cashier left about half an hour ago, so I'm hearing from another floor crew person and the manager. Manager says she saw stuff fall off of shelves while she was doing the final count. Other employee heard noises from the women's bathroom while she was cleaning up the men's. I mentioned the stuff I heard move and fall, the steps and all that. We all sort of just shrug and go to leave. Manager triggers the alarm, locks up the door behind us, and we are all hanging out around front for a few as we usually do. I light a smoke. The moment everyone is out of the store and just hanging around, we hear a loud crash from inside. That face when a whole set of shelves that makes up an aisle collapses. That face when I just sorted out all of that product about 45 minutes ago. We all look at each other and say nothing. Next day, boss comes in to find a whole aisle collapsed on the floor. Checks cameras. Cannot figure out what did it. Never had anything like that happen at that store again. There was a lot of weird stuff at that store, but this was the only major event nobody could explain. I don't go diving much anymore after my wife's mom almost died. She's a legit, fuck you, I'm going to 500 self-made businesswoman maniac, so diving is all she does. She got nitrox poisoning or something, checking out a wreck, and said she could hear her parents singing and tried to get her mask off after chatting with them, and other people that had died she knew. Luckily, she said the hallucination of her parents and some people who said she knew me said to stop taking her gear off before she kills her, so she managed to crash ascent at a non-fatal rate and just had to spend a couple weeks in a Benz tank. This is mildly spoopy, and the reason why I don't deep dive anymore is that she was humming a theme she said some people who told her they were my family were humming and said to tell me hello. It's an old song to a show from the 70s called Spy Samurai that my grandparents had VCR tapes from some retro marathon decades ago. My grandparents are Japanese. My wife is as white as milk. I loved watching that show and watched it together with my grandparents who translated it for me but never knew the name and couldn't watch it until my mother-in-law hummed it note for note into the app that recognizes music, and it picked up and told me the theme. That's the kind of thing I know most divers worry about. Seeing people you miss more than anything, and not knowing what you'll do if you see them again.